This is the Diamond Hogs Podcast with Mason Choate and Robert Stewart.
Welcome to the Diamond Hogs Podcast. I'm your host, Mason Choate, joined by Robert Stewart and producer Christian. Arkansas gets the Game 1 win over North Carolina in Chapel Hill, 4-1. So the Hogs are one win away from Omaha. But we said that last year. And so never forget what happened last year. Arkansas dominated Game 1. I think this one feels a little bit different, guys, because they didn't just completely dominate them. Like, it was a game. It was a good game. I mean, it was a pitcher's duel for a while there. I tweeted out, I was like, Max Carlson, this guy, he can only go 4 or 5 innings. And sure enough, I think it was the fifth. It was the fifth inning. Arkansas put up 3 runs against him, chased him from the game, and that was the difference, the fifth inning. And then Connor Noland, of course, goes 6 2/3. We'll get into all of that. We're going to talk about all of that. Before we do, real quick, you can find us on hitthatline.com or type in Hit That Line wherever you get your podcast. You can find the Diamond Hogs podcast there. You can check out Hit That Line AR on Twitter for live updates during games and from press conferences. Go to HawgBeat.com. Check out the HawgBeat YouTube to watch the video version of the Diamond Hogs podcast. We're on Zoom today because Robert's got a wedding in Oklahoma. Also, we didn't go to Chapel Hill for 2 reasons. One, it's a long ways away. 2, we're saving the Diamond Hogs podcast budget for Omaha, hoping that they make it to Omaha. We're not going ahead and like writing it down, but like, because we did that last year, so we're not doing that this year. But we wanted to save that budget. We've already used the budget for Hoover, Round Rock, and Stillwater. Anyways, HawgBeat.com. Go subscribe to HawgBeat.com and go subscribe to the HawgBeat YouTube as well. Okay, guys. Oh, also Chinook Seedery. Thank you to Chinook Seedery. Go to ChinookSeedery.com. Use code DHP10 for 10% off your order of the best tasting seeds in the world. If you're watching these games and you're bored and you're like, man, I just wish I had something to snack on. Don't go get like some crackers or some Cheez-Its or whatever you want. Get some Chinook seeds because they have the best flavors. And also sunflower seeds are just, they keep you busy. You know, that's why I say I use them when I'm driving, because it keeps me awake. Like it keeps me just like there, you know, I don't know. And also it's really good too. The flavors are awesome. And sometimes you get the bag and it has more of the flavoring. And so you can get like a nice little mouthful of like powder, and it's just so good. I prefer it. Sometimes with the jalapeno ranch though, it's too much. And then I have to like chug some water. But anyways, it's really good when you get that with the cinnamon toast. Okay. But code DHP10 at ChinookSeedery.com when you're at checkout, 10% off your order. Okay, guys. I just talked a lot. Robert, you go ahead. Take it away. Let me catch my breath.
Yeah, you've said everything. That was impressive. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You made the comparison from this year's Super Game 1 to last year's Super Game 1 against NC State. I don't recall how long. I mean, I assume it was Patrick Wicklander who started that game, but I don't remember how long he threw. Feels like it probably wasn't 6 2/3 innings of shutout ball. Connor Noland, I mean, for him to have the 1 7-inning outing last week against Grand Canyon, it was a step in the right direction, right? We weren't sure how to feel about it because it wasn't like a super quality opponent or anything. Goes out there 2 days later and squandered the 1 lead. Granted, I don't think that was really his fault. I don't think he had any business pitching in that game, but for him to bounce back and deliver nearly 7 innings of shutout ball while the Razorbacks didn't need home runs to win this game, that's very encouraging.
I agree there. I think that my player of the game, though, aside from Nolan's the obvious player of the game, but Zach Gregory, he drew 2 walks in the game, scored 2 runs from those walks, and Arkansas scored 4 runs. Realistically, North Carolina only scored 1 run. So Zach Gregory alone, what he did was able to outscore North Carolina. I thought that was huge. We've talked about it in recent weeks about how, you know, Gregory, he hasn't been hitting it a whole lot, but he's still getting on base. You know, he's striking out at a higher rate, but he's still getting on base. He got on base today against North Carolina. It paid off. You mentioned it. They didn't really, I mean, they had the home run from Peyton Stovall. It was a solo shot, but other than that, Brady Slavens drove in 2 runs on a pair of singles to center. And well, they weren't really. It was through the middle, not like he hit it into center, But that was huge. And you're right; they didn't rely on the long ball, and that was something that just on paper, looking at it, you felt like these two teams that it was just going to be a home run derby this weekend because they both hit home runs at a very high rate, and that's not exactly what happened today. But good for Arkansas for getting the win, and it all falls on the shoulders of Connor Noland, though. Like Connor Noland is the reason that Arkansas won this game.
Well, I mean, without a doubt. And I do want to go back to talking about Zach Gregory because he totally was the unsung hero. I mean, like you said, those 2 walks. I mean, Brady Slavens can't have two RBIs if Gregory doesn't get on base those both times. So good for him there. Peyton Stovall hit the home run to open the scoring there in the 5th. There was a solo shot, like you said. We're like, man, are we in for a bunch more solo shots today? What's gonna happen? And it's funny, Austin Prochaska, I think his name is, loyal listener of ours. We appreciate all of his support. He asked us during the game, like, what's the breakdown on solo shots versus just any other kind of home runs? Since the SEC tournament started, 2/3 of Arkansas's home runs have been solo blasts, 12 out of 18. That's impressive.
Yeah, good for you for finding that stat, Robert. Because people will tag me and stuff like, "What's the stat on this?" And then most of the time, I just reply and I'm like, "At DRS232," because I'm not gonna go find it. I'm not.
I mean,
a stats guy.
There was no way I was going to be able to look through the whole season to find that number, but I figured, SEC, NCAA tournaments, that those figures would do just as fine because, I mean, that was the concern in Hoover, right? Is that they were only hitting solo shots. They were not driving in runs in bunches. But, that's still, I guess, the case with home runs, but at least they have found other ways to score and can pitch well.
All right, Christian, let's give you a chance to talk. Any big takeaways that we haven't mentioned yet?
No, I don't think so, but that bases loaded jam that Connor Noland got out of was huge. Another example of like the defense just kind of bailing them out of like some sticky situations. I know Caden Wallace was the big playmaker in Stillwater, and then Connor obviously today. I don't think there was any other spectacular plays, but Zach Gregory made some good plays in the left, like running for a long time to make some catches in foul territory. Those are big outs because you want to get out of the inning quick and get to the next batter. Good energy overall though for a morning start, and lots of Hogs fans, so I'm glad they all showed up.
Yeah,
it did feel like there were a lot of long outs to left field, didn't there?
Yeah, no, I agree. I when you said that the long outs, it made me think, well, Gregory caught some of those in foul territory, and then, do you guys remember there in the bottom of the 9th with 2 outs, there's a foul ball there on the right side, and Peyton Stovall missed it, and first, like, my stomach dropped, and I was like, no way this is gonna happen again, and like I was fully expecting Hagen Smith to like give up a home run or something. And I'm glad he didn't, but
well, who was the one that tweeted that out? Was it Neighbors?
I think a lot of people tweeted
somebody said PTSD or something like that. And I'm like, guys, don't say it. Just ignore it. Like, why are you gonna say it?
I typed up a tweet and I was like something about foul balls with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th, but I deleted it because I was like, let's see what happens. And if something happened, then I was gonna say something about it. But good thing that Hagen Smith got out of it. Is Hagen Smith the best closer in all of baseball right now?
It's entirely possible that he is.
I think he's Robert. Do you have anything to say to me right now?
No, I don't.
No.
No, I don't. I think that, I mean, I didn't do you any wrong. I'm not going to apologize.
I'm not asking you to apologize. I just feel like maybe there's, a few words that you feel like you should say to me.
I mean, I stand by what I said. I still think that Hagen Smith should have and could have been an effective starter.
But that was not the conversation. The conversation is what is going to happen, not what should or what you think should happen. What will happen?
Okay. I mean, the way that the way that I understood that conversation is, here's who we think is going to start based on what we've seen from the team recently. And I stand by answer. I stand by my answer. Just because it didn't happen doesn't mean I don't know. Like it worked out. It worked out, and they are still in a really good position. I mean, heck, they could even bring him back to close again. Like I didn't know if it was going to be a 2 inning thing like it was last time. I honestly thought Evan Taylor probably could have gone the distance after 4 outs. I don't remember how many pitches he threw, but I think Smith could have started. I think Smith also could have done what he did today, and either way, it probably would have been fine. Good thing it worked out for the Hogs because they're up 1-0 right now, and their pitching staff's in really good shape for the rest of the weekend.
Okay, so let me ask you this though. You thought that your thought process and your opinion, which you still keep now, was that Hagen Smith should be the starter in game 2. But do you, after seeing him come out and close another game and look pretty dominant, I mean, I think he gave up a single, but do you now change your opinion? Maybe Arkansas does stick with Hagen Smith in a closer role. Maybe you move Brady Tigert to a middle relief, maybe late relief kind of guy. What are you thinking there?
Well, I wouldn't say I changed my opinion. I still think he should start because we know how many innings he's capable of throwing at a time. I think I think that is what will happen. Now that we've seen him go out twice in a row and be very effective at the back end of the bullpen, I don't think Dave Van Horn has any reason at this point to change what's working, right? We've talked about this with the lineup. Why should it be any different for the pitchers? So, yeah, maybe Brady Tigert starts to be like a 6th, 7th inning type guy. And, you can use the lefties, Taylor and Smith, toward the end of the game. I don't know.
Okay. Let's see. What else do we want to talk about? Braden Webb had 3 hits in the leadoff spot, and that I feel like
Leadoff hitter material.
and that's something that you have talked about, how you don't really know if Webb is your leadoff guy, but here he goes, 3 hits against North Carolina in this first game. And I think, I mean, you look at it, the top of the lineup, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. The top 5 guys had 5, 6, 7, 8 hits, and the bottom of the lineup had 1 hit, and that was Stovall's home run. So that I does it feel like sometimes the lineup is like it's either the top of the lineup and a bunch gets a lot of hits and the bottom doesn't, or the bottom gets a lot of hits and a bunch and the top doesn't. There's never really much in between,
Except for like 2 of those Oklahoma State games this past weekend, but those were crazy. So yeah, I mean, you're kind of right. I mean, you mentioned it, 8 hits out of the top 5. I mean, Webb and Slavens alone were 5 for 9 together, and Webb's walk, I mean, you talked about Gregory taking those 2 walks, Webb taking that one to move Gregory up and get Slavens another RBI. That was huge there in the 7th. I mean, think about, had he not been thrown out at third base, how much bigger could that 7th inning have been? But that's what you need your leadoff hitter to do, get on base. I mean, you don't trust Zach Gregory enough to provide you with the hits, but Braden Webb can do that. Single to left twice, laid down a bunt for a hit once. He's exactly what the Hogs need at the top of the order right now. And if Slavens is going to get hot, deliver those hits with runners in scoring position, then he's perfect in the 2-hole too.
Okay, so moving forward to Sunday's game, Dave Van Horn has not announced a starter, even though the guy on ESPN said Arkansas is going to start Jackson Wiggins tomorrow. I guess
weird.
Somebody commented on one of my posts and was like, well, from their research, they only know that Arkansas has started consistently the same 3 guys all year, and that's what they went with. So it makes sense if you're only looking on paper at Arkansas, why you would say Jackson Wiggins if they bring Hagen Smith in to close this game. But I honestly would be surprised if it's Wiggins tomorrow at this point.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I saw that Smith was getting called in for the 9th inning, like at that point, it narrowed it down to McIntyre or Morris for me. I think
Somebody said maybe, and I think you could say the same thing about McIntyre, but somebody said maybe you go with Ramage in the start because Ramage throws a lot like Noland as a right-hander, and North Carolina we saw today didn't do well against Noland at all. So maybe you go with a guy that's similar, or maybe that's the wrong thing to do because now North Carolina has seen that type of guy. Maybe you go with a lefty and Zach Morris, who I think a lot of people believe that's who it's going to be at this point.
Yeah, that's probably fair. You know, I want to talk about the seventh inning there with Noland, right? Because he got those two quick outs and then gave up the single to the 9-hitter. And then that's when Van Horn pulled the plug. I think he was at like 88 or 89 pitches. So it's like, I mean, he probably could have finished the inning, but at the same time, the lineup was about to see him for the fourth time. And I feel like that's probably why he made the move. Again, we're not in Chapel Hill. We have not had access to the press conference for whatever reason. But I mean, if I had to guess, I'd say that's why he made the move. So to your point about, you know, maybe you don't want to start Ramage because he's like Noland. That would be like seeing Noland for the fourth time tomorrow. So maybe you don't, and maybe you go with Morris to switch things up.
Yeah, I think there is a difference between Ramage and Noland because, I mean, from what I've seen from Ramage, I feel like he is very like majority off speed. That's what he's going to go with. Noland likes to mix the fastball in there, and you don't see a whole lot of fastballs from Ramage. So, and I mean, these North Carolina hitters, you saw it from the two power hitters, especially Osuna. Like now I see why those guys had a ton of strikeouts this year because they just could not hit off speed to save their lives. Like the ESPN guys were saying that too. They were saying, you know, if they're going to keep swinging at those breaking balls and those sliders, why would you stop throwing them? And no one didn't. So it worked out for Arkansas.
Right. And think about it too, like in the Grand Canyon game last week, Noland threw 7 and then Ramage seamlessly transitioned to finish things off with two innings, right? It was 7 and then 2. That was the split. So yeah, it by that token, maybe Ramage should start tomorrow. You know,
yeah. To be determined. Let's see.
It will either be a lefty or a righty.
Yeah, that's what Dave Van Horn said. So
thanks, Dave.
Let's go ahead and do some listener questions, and then I want to take a mini victory lap on my Notre Dame prediction later.
All right, cool, guys. So I got the listener questions with us today. So from Young Sea Lion, we got, so how do you feel about having more start tomorrow with Tiger and Smith coming out in relief? We would still have tons of arms if you go to game 3. I think that's along the lines of kind of what we've been thinking, but yeah, I guess you can answer that.
Yeah, I think if you start Morris, then you're still in a good spot because you still got 2 long relief guys in Ramage and McIntyre in case things go wrong with Morris. You still got Tiger, who didn't throw today. Taylor only threw 14 pitches. Hagen Smith only threw 19 pitches. And I mean, there's still other guys. Zebulon Vermillion's one of them. I think they can afford to throw Zach Morris as a starter tomorrow. And if things go wrong, then you can fall back on Jackson Wiggins as the game 3 starter, who's been the game 3 starter all season. Robert, what say you?
I mean, I think it all comes down to whether you want to start a lefty or a righty. I do kind of like the idea. I mean, that we just talked about Ramage, but like I said, when I first saw Hagen Smith was coming in, it immediately in my mind came down to Morris or McIntyre for Sunday's game. I think if you want to change things up, go with a lefty, go with Morris. If you want to, I mean, we've been talking for a while now. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you want to keep fooling them with a right-handed pitcher, McIntyre is a good option. Now, I've said before that I still like him as a longer relief option better. So maybe you go with Morris and then McIntyre, and hopefully you can limit it to just those 2 guys tomorrow. And if you need to get to play Monday, then Ramage or Wiggins could start. And if you don't use Hagen Smith on Sunday, then I bet you he'd be available for a handful of innings on Monday, should they need him.
Cool. All right. So I got one more. If Tennessee loses, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves with this question, but I'll still ask it. If Tennessee loses and Arkansas advances to Omaha, would the Hogs be considered the favorite for the national championship?
I mean, they've got two Pac-12 teams, probably two Pac-12 teams on their side of the bracket that they would have to deal with. We all know how the last meeting between Arkansas and Oregon State and Omaha went. I'm sure we all remember the last time Arkansas and Stanford played each other too. It wasn't pretty for the Hogs offensively. So I don't think that the Hogs become the favorite just because Tennessee's not. Maybe if they win that bracket and get to the title game, maybe they are, but they got to get out of that bracket first.
No, yeah. First of all, Tennessee's up on Notre Dame 6-0 right now. So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves either. And also, even if Tennessee loses, I don't think Arkansas would be the favorite. I think it would probably either be one of those Pac-12 teams. Virginia Tech is really good. They got to get past Oklahoma first, though. I think Arkansas would not be the favorite over probably 4 or 5 teams. I mean, you have the brand name of Arkansas, but that's really it. Let's see. I do have a question. Somebody texted me, my friend Malachi Jones. He texted me, I would like to submit a question for the podcast. Why does Mason not believe in the Razorbacks to win it all? My evidence is his having a future in the Aggies to win the College World Series. And if you tell me no, I'll just send it to Robert. So I will explain this. And this is okay. I made this future bet on A&M probably a month and a half ago. And the only reason I did it was because it was plus 15,000 odds. And I was like, somebody making these odds at Bet Saracen forgot about Texas A&M. And this is why the odds are this good. That is the only reason I took it. Now, I still don't think Arkansas has what it takes to win a national championship, even if I didn't have a future on A&M. So that's that. And I think that's fair to say, based on what we've seen this season. But I think literally anything is possible now because, I mean, we predicted our regional and Robert, you and I didn't have Arkansas making it out of Stillwater. So, and here they are, and they just won the first game in Chapel Hill. So I think it's a proven fact that Robert and I don't know what the heck we're talking about.
Of course we don't. That's why nobody makes money gambling on sports. Going back to your first point, Kendall Rogers said they were good odds, so they're good odds. And then the second thing, throughout, I mean, based on what we've seen this season, I'm still not convinced Arkansas does have what it takes to win a national championship. Of course, they've been a completely different team since the NCAA tournament started, and so naturally, that's going to give fans hope. They're going to start to drink the Kool-Aid. And I'm not saying it couldn't happen because they look so much better than they did for all of May, the back half of April. Like it's so much more fun to watch this team now that the baseball, I mean, the on-field product is better. Like, I mean, you could see in Stillwater, every time someone would get hit by a pitch or take ball 4, they'd all be, looking back at the dugout, clapping, like firing the team up. Like I think Kendall Rogers the other day was saying that they played uninspired in Hoover. They look like they're inspired now.
Okay. Christian, let's ask you about, do you think Arkansas could make the national championship? Because you were the only one on this podcast who thought they would win at Stillwater. So if you say it, then maybe we can trust it.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. I think they have a great chance, not obviously, but right now I think they have a great chance getting through the supers and at least getting there. And then once you get there, anything can happen, as we all know. I'm following the formula from last year with Mississippi State. They were terrible in the SEC tournament, right? They got bounced in 2 games, similar to Arkansas. They got hot when they needed to, and we obviously know what happened with them last year. So, could they win? I don't know. The pitching is a big thing. If Connor Noland, I think he's the key. If he can pitch like that game 1 of a series or game 1 in in Omaha, that sets up the rest of the bullpen for the rest of the way. So I think it's possible. I'm very optimistic about them, but we'll see what happens.
It makes me really worried that we're talking about this right now, because first of all, thanks a lot. I think it was Sweater Hog who asked that question about the national championship. Thanks a lot, Sweater Hog, for that question, because then you got us on this tangent, and there's 2 more games in the Supers to be played. Robert and I did this same thing last year. Arkansas dominated NC State in the first game. We recorded the post-game episode, and we were like, oh my gosh, Arkansas is going to go to Omaha and win it all. Here we are again doing the same thing, talking about can Arkansas win the national championship. So maybe we just cut this from the podcast and we end it here. Like we end it wherever before we started, because this is just, we need to stop. We don't need to get ahead of ourselves. We need to take it one game at a time. Okay. I think the team understands that after what happened last year.
That's the thing. We can sit here and say all we want. We as members of the media are allowed to look ahead. The team is not. We heard that I think it was Robert Moore and Jalen Battles maybe in one of the post-game pressers in Stillwater. I mean, you could tell based on their attitude, their language, their composure. They're not in the same mindset they were last year. At this point last year, you're up 1-0 in the Supers. Your bags are packed for Omaha. All you got to do is win one more game. You won every series that year. What's another one game? Apparently, last year it was everything. At this point, they know what losing's like. They know how they felt after it all came crashing down last year. I think mentally they're in a better, stronger place to finish the series off than they were last year.
Okay, we're gonna end it here, and we will.
I got one more funny thing to bring up about the game.
Okay.
So Hit That Line sent out a tweet with a video when Connor Noland's walking off the mound. And if you can look in the bottom left corner, there's a UNC fan giving Noland the double birds. And I thought that was just hilarious. I'm like, dude, you're sitting in the front row and you're flipping off the opposing pitcher, like right next to their dugout. I thought that was pretty bold. But he's obviously big mad, and he went home sad today. So I
saw that. I thought that was very Tennessee-esque. Speaking of Tennessee, real quick. I'm going to say this real quick because right now they're up 6-0 on Notre Dame. I'm not going to take my victory lap yet because whatever. I tweeted out before the game, Notre Dame's going to beat Tennessee this weekend. I did not clarify if they were going to win the series. I just said they're going to beat Tennessee. So I can take 2 different routes here. I can say, well, they did beat Tennessee. And if they lose the series, they still beat Tennessee once. If they win the series, they beat Tennessee. So right now, I'm in a good position. But it's so funny that all the Tennessee fans just flood my mentions, thinking that I'm living rent free or they're living rent free in my head, when it's the other way around. Because I didn't tag any of them. I did not tag anybody in Tennessee Twitter, and they come flooding my mentions.
Did I see that one of the Tennessee fans called you the blockhead of the century?
Yeah, no, I thought that was a good one. And then
everybody, I feel like you should make that your Twitter header.
Everybody wants to do that little play on words with the word that sounds like my last name, as if I did not grow up and go through middle school and high school and hear that all the time. So it's like, it's not funny anymore. And it really never was funny, but now it's just like, I've heard that so many times that it just does not bother me whatsoever.
Super original.
Yeah, it's as if nobody has said that before. Anyways, I think myself, along with everybody in the United States, is rooting for Notre Dame. So, and also, go ahead.
Before we get too far off of this, how about Drew Gilbert mouthing off the umpire in a 1-0 count?
What an idiot.
Yesterday.
How about the Tennessee fans throwing trash on the field again? This is they're repeat offenders. And so, like, do what? Yeah. Repeat. So I saw somebody tweet that Arkansas fans would never do that to Baum because Baum is sacred grounds. And I think that is true. Maybe it's because they're like, Lindsey Nelson, this is a high school ballpark. We can just throw stuff on the field. Maybe they'll build something bigger. So maybe Tennessee fans, you're doing something good if they build a bigger ballpark, then maybe you will think it is sacred grounds and not throw anything on the field, you know?
You know how James Earl Jones' character in Field of Dreams says, "People will come, Ray.
Yeah.
People won't throw trash, Ray."
Yeah. If you build it, people won't throw trash. There you go. Okay. We're gonna end it here because this is a really long post-game episode. So we'll talk to everybody after game 2.
You've been listening to the Diamond Hogs podcast. Follow the guys on Twitter at Choate Mason and at drstew32.